Welcome to What Works for Women at Work. I'm your host, Evelyn Axelrod, and this season I'm talking to bold and accomplished women who are ready to spill the secrets to their incredible success. Come join me and unlock the doors to your leadership breakthrough. Let's dive in. Hello and welcome back to What Works for Women at Work. Today I am here with Tabitha May-Tolub, a friend that I made through coaching, and she is one of the most positive people I know. She believes in people, and she's been doing leadership development for a long time. Tabitha, tell the people a little bit about you.
Oh, Eve, that was the nicest introduction. I love that. And I'm so happy to be here with my old coaching partner who's so talented and brilliant. Yes, so I'm Tabitha. I am in the field of leadership development and organizational health. So I do a lot of facilitation, training, coaching, assessments, really just trying to help organizations, educational institutions, businesses just create spaces where they're productive and healthy and where people want to work and where they're moving forward. So I am a leadership development nerd. I've been studying and informally leadership development, I think, my whole life. I'm absolutely fascinated with how amazing leaders are made and how they thrive and how they support other leaders. So yeah, you can get me talking about that all day, every day, any day. And when I'm not doing that, I'm a mom of two. I can't even call them children. They're so grown now, but they're wonderful as well. And I have an adorable puppy who is right here with us at my feet. So yeah, that's me.
Awesome. If they come on screen, that'd be good too.
Okay.
That's awesome. And so, who better to learn about leadership than from you? Tell us a little bit about first, we want to get into your journey and some things that have really helped to shape your path. But what's your definition of leadership? I really want to hear that from you.
I think there's so many definitions and actually like at one point I have this giant lamp and I would stick stickies on it. Every time I found someone else's definition of leadership that I liked, I'd stick stickies on it. And then take it off when I didn't like it. So that's been a progress of mine. But I think for me, leadership is anytime you have the opportunity to support and influence people or systems to move forward. And that can look a lot of different ways and take a lot of different skills. But anytime you sort of take action to kind of move something forward or strengthen something, whether it's just a person, a relationship, an organization, just taking those moments to be like, I'm going to support um, these people, this process, this system to kind of be stronger, be better.
Mm. I love that. I love that because we often forget that all of these systems, all of these organizations, all of these structures are made of people, right? And they're made of interactions and they're made of relationships. So I love the beauty in that simplicity, but how it scales into all of the systems around us, right?
Absolutely. And I think sometimes we put so much gravitas and like stress and weight on the word leadership. And really it's just
Mm.
showing up and leaning in. And that makes it accessible to everyone. And certainly there are titles and there are people in power, but that's different than leadership. Some titles and people in power show leadership, and some are just titles and power, right? So leadership can kind of be anywhere where people are leaning in.
Yeah, love that. So tell us a little bit about your journey and how you've come here and what kind of strategies have kept you developing yourself as a leader.
Yeah, I think so. My journey is interesting because one, I'm the product of a single mom, and I don't know how many single moms out there would define themselves as leaders, but they are
Mm.
1000%. So I was raised by a single mom, which I think helps. It gave me a lot of things. And then as a young adult, as a teenager, I was tapped for a couple of leadership like opportunities that were surprising to me. I didn't really see myself as a leader. I was very introverted. I wasn't particularly self-assured or self-confident. I just kind of showed up and did my thing, but someone saw something in me and said, "No, you can do this and you're going to do this and I'm going to support you." Part of that was through the camp. The Y camp that I worked at, being put in leadership positions. Part of it was like in different clubs where they were like, guess what? You're the president now. I'm like, "Ah, what? I don't know how to do this." And looking back, I think what they saw in me was my ability to really work with people. I hate to say I was a people person, but like I saw people, I understood how people worked. And I think they saw that. I never, when I was growing up, leadership was you stood in front of a room and talked loudly and told people what to do. And I wasn't me. So that was really interesting. And I think that kind of fueled my passion for unlikely leaders, whether it's youth or in adult spaces, really zoning and finding those people that have something special and what kind of support, encouragement, skills do they need to kind of take that leadership? Because sometimes those are the most powerful leaders. And I love that. Powerful in a good way, leaders. So that's kind of how I came into it. And I think my strategies have changed over the years. Like I said, I read a zillion books and I try things out. But I think the ones that the ones that have stuck are one, self-awareness,
Mm.
just being really clear about who I am, who I'm not, what I'm good at, what I'm not, how I'm showing up, how I'm engaging with others, and just being really self-aware and really self-reflective about that. I think I've learned a lot about my leadership through just watching myself and watching how what worked and what didn't. And of course, getting feedback and reflections from others and being open to that. But yeah, I think self-awareness. I think the other thing is lifelong learning. And I know that's a term that gets thrown around a lot, but I love to learn. And I read about a book and a half a week and I listen to podcasts and not all about leadership, a lot about leadership because I love that. But, there are moments when I'm reading a book about gardening and something will like connect in my brain and help me think about things in a different way or approach things in a different way. So just opening, keeping your mind kind of loose and ready for new ideas and new connections is super helpful. And I think the third thing that's the same as when I got involved with training and facilitation, I really started to see the power of group dynamics and just how powerful people can be when they're really gelling together in terms of understanding and problem solving. And that's sort of those lessons I try to take into all the spaces I go into. How can people show up together in a way that like amplifies the energy and the productivity and the goodness in a way. And sort of that's been a tool that I've used.
Wow. First of all, I didn't know you started off at the Y. So did I.
Oh, I love why people. I love why
There is a
people.
thing about why people, like,
There
yes,
are.
yeah, that's what we
Mm-hmm.
call them, why people.
Yep.
And so, it's funny that you shared that you were an introvert, and or you saw yourself as an introvert, but somebody saw something in you. And I like to call those people multipliers, right? Because they look for that gem in someone else and really help them to bring that out. And based on what you shared with me, you're seeing that in other people. You're helping not just individuals, but teams to really come together and find the commonality. And so, from some multiplier working with you to bring you to where you are and to help you to recognize your strengths, you are doing that for other people as well.
Absolutely. And I'm so grateful for my multipliers. So if there are multipliers out there listening, like you probably have no idea
Mm.
the impact you've had on people's lives. Because I can not just in my young adult, but even my first professional job was at a Y. And my mentor there, my supervisor there, just again saw things in me. He was the one that decided I was going to be a trainer. I was like, "Are you? No, that is not me." He was like, "Yes, it is." Showed up. I mean, so through, really listening to those multipliers, taking those risks, even when you don't see yourself that way. And yeah, the people who do that for others are just special and impacting people nonstop without even probably knowing it.
Yeah. And I want to use that, the thread of impact. When you were talking about self-awareness, really getting to know what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, getting feedback from others, knowing you a little bit, I feel like that's a lot about how you're impacting other people Can you talk to us a little bit about that in terms of, really assessing yourself? And there's challenges and difficulties that come with that, right? Also getting feedback, but yes, that's about you, but that's also about other people. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, there's so many beautiful things about self-awareness. One, it just helps you see yourself in a realistic way, so you kind of know how to proceed. But as a leader, the amount of vulnerability and modeling that comes with self-awareness and reflection and feedback, to be able to show up in the spaces where you are in a leadership role, either formal or informal, and show the people around you that like we get stronger and better by being clear about what's working and what's not working. That's super hard for people to do, especially when they're new to a space and you're asking them to be like, yeah, tell us what you're struggling with. They're like, no, they're trying to show up in like the best possible light. And so to be a leader and say, yeah, we make impact on ourselves and each other and the world by being clear about what's happening and working to get better and understanding where our pinch points are, where our areas of growth are, and being honest and talking to each other about it and leaning on each other in the ways that we need to. I think just modeling that is can have huge personal impact, but also just professional impact on your space.
Mm-hmm. And we really need to be careful about the energies we show up with, right? Because oftentimes, those leaders, like you said, informal or formal, they're those people that come into a room and they influence how that room feels, the people feel, the energy is so transferable. And we need to be self-aware of that because we are impacting other people.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think, there's so much conversation now about positivity, which is a thing, totally a thing.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that's an important point. Because the way we show up our energy is also deeply connected to mindset,
Yeah.
right? Which is deeply connected to how we're tackling problems in our spaces and how we're connecting and collaborating. So it's not just about like I have a smile on my face and I'm happy, but it's like have I been able to adjust my mindset to be ready for whatever we're going to tackle today? And then once I've done that, am I ready to tackle these problems? So I think so many of these skills feel fluffy to people when really they're like super tangible and connected to organizational success and relational success. So yeah, I think thinking about like how we're showing up and also being honest, I think we were just talking before we started recording been a tough month. There were mornings when I showed up with my colleagues and was like, "Yeah, I'm not here today. I'm struggling, and I'm going to do my best. But like, you just need to know, it's not the usual Tabitha that you're going to see with a big smile and the big energy. Like, I'm in a place, and that vulnerability and the support that comes when you're willing to do that with your team and able to do that with your team, I think is huge in terms of impact."
You brought up something so perfectly about mindset. And I really believe, I mean, we talk about the soft skills, but they're like so powerful. These skills that we have to have, emotional intelligence, like the way we manage our state, our mindsets. Um, in terms of your own leadership journey, can you share with us some of the mindsets that you think are really important and how that's empowered your own journey?
Absolutely. And I mean, let's just name whoever called these soft skills and made that stick, they need to be in leadership jail, right? Because these are such hard skills. There's nothing about these skills that are soft. So just want to name that. But yeah, I think there's a lot about mindset. I think the mindset shift that has been the most impactful seems super simple, but there was a moment midway, like I mean, I don't I can say my age, like when I was around 35, I'm 51 now. When I was around 35, I had this epiphany. Seems really simple, which is that I don't have to be good at everything.
Mm.
I really don't have to be good at everything. And up until then, I really thought I did. And when I wasn't, I would just feel terrible about myself and I would get so stressed and I of course would never ask for help. Um so just that mindset of like I'm really good at a lot of things and there are some other things that I'm not so good at. And the things I'm not so good at, that's an opportunity for someone else to shine because there are people out there that are really incredibly good at the things I'm terrible at. And I think particularly, I know you do so much work with women leaders. I know this is a huge generalization, but women feel like we have to do it all. We get messages that we have to do it all, and we really feel like we are obligated to do it all. So I think especially women leaders, when we can get to that point to be like, you know what, we don't. There are things I'm good at, there are things I'm not so good at. And I think the strength of women is often their ability to collaborate, right? So those things are perfect together. Like I don't have to do it all. And I know how to bring other people to the table and create a team that can really move forward. So that was huge for me. And I know it feels super simple because we talk about strengths and weaknesses all the time, but for a very long time, I just thought I had to be good at everything, which was not true. So I
It
think
was
that was the one
stressful.
of the so stressful, right? Yeah. And I think the other mindset we talked about, I think before we started recording is just the idea that when things are overwhelming and stressful, that I have circles of influence and they're powerful. And that's where I can lean in. That is very much connected to I have to do it all. Like I have to fix the entire world and all the problems in it and be there for every single person I know, right? Like there are circles of influence and I can be really powerful in those circles. And it's okay if I don't influence everything.
Mhm.
So,
Absolutely. And
yeah.
like we said, those circles have ripple effects. So you don't have to solve all the problems in the entire world, but your impact is important and it does matter. Um, you talked about, women not liking to ask for help. How do we reframe that?
Yeah. I mean, it's such a good question. And I think part of it is that mindset work around just nobody, not just you're not good at everything. Nobody's good at everything. There, and why would you lean hard into something that you're not good at when someone else could do it so easily, right? So I think, and I'm going to say this and I'm going to acknowledge that I sometimes still struggle with digesting this, but I really do think when we ask for help, we give someone else an incredible opportunity to support us, to show their talents, to show up. It really is an opportunity. And I think and I still have a hard time. Like I literally have to mantra my way out of this, right? Like, and tell myself this is an opportunity. I know you don't want to ask for help, but this is an opportunity. So I think that be a really good reframe of this is to really see it that way. I have an amazing colleague named Sarah Fanslau. I'm going to give her a little shout out. And she says all the time that saying no gives room for your most powerful yeses.
Mhm.
And that has been a huge shift for me too, professionally and personally. Like when I say no, when I ask for help, when I let someone else take something, I'll have room for more important yeses. And that's super freeing as well, I think.
I love that. I love that. And what you shared just now made me think of, I like the term mantra because I shared with you my mantra last year was progress of over perfection, and it has helped. It has so helped. And so we really need to think about a mantra to help women and just people get comfortable with asking for help. And I like how you had said, like, asking for help is creating an opportunity for collaboration. So we need to get creative with that and really think about, yeah, asking for help is seeking collaboration. I mean, I need to come up with something, but that's beautiful, really, because
Yeah.
it's saying with all honesty and vulnerability, I have strengths in this, you have strengths in something else. Can we work together to make this thing work?
And the power of team is, I think, something we can all acknowledge. When you bring a really good team together with diverse talents, what comes out of that is way more than any one individual could come up with, right? It's spectacular. So I think that can be it. And, I think the other way to look at this sometimes is if you think about your personal life, when you're struggling in your personal life and you ask a friend to help you, people come out of the woodwork. How can I help? What can I do? But when you ask someone to help, it's joyful to support a friend that's in need, that's struggling. It's the same in our other spaces, right? It's very joyful to lean into a colleague who needs support and shine. That's joyful. So I think just that opportunity factor can be really freeing and really helpful.
Thank you for that. Now, help us, because you do so much organizational development work. Help us pull the curtain back a little bit on some practical things that companies can do, businesses can do to help remove some of these barriers to women as they try to advance in their careers and grow into leadership?
Yeah, I mean that's such a great question, and I do think it's situational, right? Like I think different sectors have
Mm,
some unique challenges when it comes to women leadership. Certainly there are spaces where women can easily elevate and shine, and then there are new challenges, and then there are spaces where women are still trying to really be known. And I think, part of it is just acknowledging and identifying and naming the specific benefits and challenges of women leaders. And I think we can sometimes that can be tricky because we're like, well, we don't want to say all women are like this. We don't want to, but there are some unique benefits that gender generally brings to the table that companies and organizations really need now. That collaborative energy, that creative energy, that compassion and EQ shows up higher in women leaderships. That's not just what Tabitha believes, although I do, but that's sort of what the research shows as a general rule. And so really there are challenges. What are those? Why is it so hard in your sector for women to kind of rise? And then what are the benefits? Like if we can make space for that, how is that going to benefit our organization, our company? What's in it for us? Like it's not just about being nice to women, it's about women bring a lot to the table. Diversity brings a lot to the table, tangibly. And I think, it's so funny. I have these conversations a lot about like just I've had women say to me, this is a terrible thing, but I'm going to name it here. I've had women say to me, I hate working with other women. Like if you get a bunch of women together, it's like really catty and really dramatic, and I just don't like that space. And why is that? And I think many women have had that experience, and I think part of that in its worst form comes from the fact that as women, we've been taught that we have to kind of push each other down in order to get to that one coveted. And so we've been kind of, I don't know, programmed is a little dramatic, but we've been hearing messages for a long time about the way we get to those leadership positions is by holding each other back. And that's ridiculous, right? It's just ridiculous. So I think even as women leaders, really supporting each other in those spaces and saying, I'm not going to listen to these messages, right? Like we thrive together. When you thrive, I thrive. And how can we do that? And particularly women that are sort of in the role of supporting younger female leaders that are much more empowered than we were in our 20s, I think, but are also still negotiating all of those dynamics. How can we support them to figure out how to be an empowered female leader and to work within systems and to kind of support each other? Just that mentorship, I think, is huge. And I also think we have to keep going back to like elementary school, right? Like even as like CEOs of businesses, we need to be thinking about those second grade girls and how is their voice being appreciated? How is their voice being nurtured? How are their leadership skills being elevated over their obedience skills, right? Like how are we growing young female leaders right from the get-go? I think we still need to lean into that. There's still room for growth there.
So many things in there, Tabitha. I mean, the idea that um, people continue to say when women work together, there's this like arguments and this cattiness. I really want to caution people, especially women, because we've been living in a patriarchal system, and that's kind of been the norm, the way the mindset, the way we grew up, and it's infectious. Like you start internalizing that stuff. And if we understand just the basics that we're all equal, we no longer need to, operate within this patriarchal sort of system or mindset, then we can break those things apart, right? And the fact is, you talked about like these traits that women leaders, tend to have. I mean, I think we need to be allies to each other. I mean, we're looking to men to be allies to help break some of the barriers in the workplace. But I think you rightly said women bring so many great things to the table, and we need to sort of work together and this do this cross learning about what are the best practices generally for this new generation that is expecting a whole different sort of paradigm of leadership, and how do we support this generation and grow them with the ways that, we've suffered, men and women have suffered under systems, and we want to be able to create a new and a free paradigm for people to work under.
Yeah, absolutely. I think just, leadership in general, but especially women's leadership, that mentorship, that tangible mentorship is so critical. Like finding people who you really respect and who are growing and thriving in the way that you want to grow and thrive, and really learning from them and connecting to them, and vice versa, really reaching around you to younger professionals and being like, how can I support you? Where are you struggling? In an active way. Again, I think, as we step into these positions and connect and collaborate with each other, it's helping us all. It's helping us all. So, and not just women, it's just helping all of our systems and all of our organizations to be stronger and more collaborative and more empathetic. I mean, like when I was started studying leadership, empathetic leadership wasn't even a thing. Like that wasn't even a term people talked about. And I think part of that is in reflection of women leaders who are stepping into these roles and saying, we need to take care of each other. Like we need to hit the bottom line. We're going to do that by taking care of each other. And that's sort of, I think that's a result of more women being in leadership, which I love and helps everyone. So,
And I want to, just before we move away from this piece, I want to encourage women, especially younger women, to, when you come to a mentor, or when you come, bring the real problems. You do not need to come perfectly. You do not need to impress anybody. We're here, our doors are open, we want to help, but bring the problems that you're having so we can help guide you, tell you, when we struggle with that, this is what worked. This is what we think could work now. You do not need to be perfect. You need to not worry about that. Come. We want to be able to help.
that I love that. Yeah. And on the other side, for mentors to really articulate just what you said, like show up real and authentic so that we can get some work done together. Yeah, I love that.
So how the heck do you read a book and a half a week?
You know
Wow.
what? It's so funny. Everyone says that. I love, I mean, there are some weeks that I don't, but as a general rule, I have my you know, my like fiction book next to my bed, and then I have my, nonfiction book at my in my office. But I just like that. That's a happy space for me. So, yeah,
And
it's
in
not the norm
all
anymore.
and in all of this reading and researching and podcasting that you do and you listen to, what are some of the favorites and most impactful that you think we can also follow?
Yeah, I think that I'm going to throw some names out that hopefully are like common names to people, but Brene Brown is my she's just she's everything, right? Like I don't think I'm being dramatic when I say she's everything. I think the way she tackles things that are difficult to tackle, that are soft, is really helpful in spaces. And so I've read everything by her more than once. That's kind of my when I'm having a challenging week, I go back to Brené's books. When I'm like, I can't think about how to like rock the system, I just need to go back to Brené. So for sure, Patrick Lencioni's work around just organizational health is also just super helpful and tangible. I love he's I have all of his books as well. Love his Working Genius assessment. If people are looking to understand what their superpowers are, it's cheap to take. It's not like some of the assessments are really expensive and lengthy. This one's 10 minutes, $20, something like that. It really helps you understand what you're great at and how to lean in. So love him. I'm not getting paid to plug that. I just, love him. Um, I'm reading now a book called I just pulled it because I couldn't remember what it was called, but it's called Reinventing Organization, and it's by Frederick Lalau, and it's really a history of organizational development and like kind of like where we could go, like where we have the potential to go to really create different spaces. And that's very intriguing to me, thinking about how can we do this better. We've learned so much about how organizations work and how humans work. How can we apply all that knowledge to this? So I love doing that. But, I would say like resources like I was saying about before, like read what's interesting to you and just let your mind wander and find those connections. I think there's so much to be said for just reading and reflecting versus scrolling. Not that I don't scroll every once in a while, but there's that space to really make those brilliant insights and connections. That's pretty fun and helpful.
I'm going to definitely check out that assessment, Working Genius assessment.
Yeah,
I'm definitely going to
yeah,
check that one out.
very
Now, tell
helpful.
us about your podcast.
Yeah. So we were just talking about this before. So I do with my good friend and colleague, Master Chris Rappold, um, who runs a group of martial arts studios. He's actually I don't know, a 5 or 7 times world championship. Sorry, Chris. We are doing a podcast together called The Growth Blueprint. And it started because Chris and I like to get together and talk about leadership development. We're both leadership development nerds. And then we said, who else can we talk to? So we started a podcast and each episode we bring in on brilliant people like Eve, who will have to be on my podcast now, to just get their insights into leadership development. And really our focus is really the containers. Like how can we build different containers where people can thrive as humans and as leaders, whether it's in the martial arts studio or a classroom or an organization or the grocery store. Like how can we just create spaces where people can grow as humans and grow as leaders? And so every episode we get to have insight from really amazing humans about how they've done it and draw connections and ask great questions. So super fun. Check it out. We'll have Eve on soon. Be ready for that.
That's awesome. Now, and we can get this anywhere, right?
Yeah. Everywhere where podcasts live. We also have a page on LinkedIn. You can look us up and find all kinds of cool stuff there.
Awesome, awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I really like your take on leadership. I really, because, you know, people are afraid of that word, intimidated a little bit of that word. And I think it's funny, it's martial arts, but it can be at the Wise camp, it can be a kid in kindergarten, it can be anywhere where you decide to show up and support. And sometimes you can have all of the fancy titles, but you're not actually a leader in all of the environments that you're in. You just decide where you want to have a contribution, you want to hold space for people, you want to create safety for people to grow. I love your approach to leadership, and definitely going to check out your podcast. And we're going to add that to the bottom of this video for people to check out as well. Um,
Thank you.
this has been fun. This time has flown. I fully enjoyed it. Thank you so much, Tabitha.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. This was a fun conversation. I appreciate being here.